Hello and welcome to my next set of videos. This is all going to be about ideology. Now this is just a quick little introduction. We're going to look at Marxist ideology and feminist ideology and see how this all interlinks with one another. Now if you're following in our little book, it's pages 4 to 5 by which you can use. Now, an ideology can be defined as a belief system that supports the interests of a particular social group at the expense of others. Now, ideologies can be used to maintain the power of dominant groups in society, be it religious groups, political groups, and or a scientific belief system. All have been seen as ideological in the basic concepts. Now, the actual term ideology has various meanings and can be defined in a multitude of manners. However, it does have many negative aspects which are commonly associated with this term. Some of them are distortion or false ideas about the world or biased view of reality, by which then promotes a one-sided view as to how the social world is actually functioning. Now, the ideas that conceal interests of a particular group or legitimize their position. If we look at feminism and Marxism, this is a clear example as to there is the bourgeoisie or men who are looking to conceal their power and they're looking to legitimize their position within society whilst maintaining that women and the proletariat or subject class are oppressed as a result. Now, the third negative point here is ideas that prevent change by misleading people about the reality of a situation. So what we would see here as a perfect example is the use of scripture to really promote the place by which women and the proletariat belong within society. Now, there are a number of different perspectives on ideology. All agree that there are major beliefs in society which are shaped by the interests of powerful groups, but they disagree about who the powerful groups are and about the extent of the influence on beliefs. Now, Marxism and ideology is one of the main ones which we would focus on within sociology. Now, Marx argues that the capitalists and other class-based societies are dominated by ruling class ideology, a set of beliefs that support the interests of those dominant economic classes in society. Now, Marx believed that capitalist societies are divided into two classes. Now, this is the ruling class who own the economic base, so the capital, machinery, land and labour power. Meanwhile, we've got the subject class which does not own the means of production and therefore has to work for the ruling class in order to survive. Now, the structure of society does have two parts, which is the economic base, which includes the means of production and is controlled by the ruling class. The superstructure, which includes all non-economic parts of society, including the state and mass media, education and religion. Now, the Marxist perspective argues that the ruling class exploit the subject class and attempt to maintain their dominance over them by controlling ideas, beliefs and values of society. Therefore, by doing so, they are ensuring capitalist hegemony still remains dominant. Now, in the German ideology in 1846, Marx and Engels argued that the ideas of the ruling class are in every age the ruling ideas. Now, Marx believed that capitalist societies, the dominant ideology is reproduced partly through the mass media. By this encourages acceptance of capitalism as the best or the only viable economic system, acceptance of power of the capitalist state, a consumer culture to consume the products of capitalism to make sure profits for companies, and a passive workforce which does not question its low wages. All of which relates to that last point that I've got on my slide here, which is to support the position of the ruling class in society, making sure that they remain the most dominant as a result. Now, the ruling class ideology includes ideas and beliefs such as the following. So, Bowles-Gintis theory of meritocracy. Everyone has an equal chance in life, so the poor must be poor because they are lazy and poor, not because of capitalism. Meaning that the onus is placed on these individuals for their own plights, rather than it being put down to the unfairness or inequality which exists within society's infrastructures. As we can see from this picture that I've just put on the screen there, obviously by having that work, they are at that poor position because they are lazy and they are poor, rather than those who are at the top are the ones who have got the skills and the ability to reach the top of that economic base, and therefore they have earned their rights to be successful and to dominate over other individuals. Other ideas that creep into this are racist ideas about the inferiority of ethnic minorities, which divided black and white workers, thus making them easier to control. Claiming that one group was vastly different to the other meant that they would be treated differently, and the segregation would be a natural process as a result. Thus, the dominant ideas are the ideas of the ruling class, and they function to prevent change by creating a false consciousness. Now, Gramsci claims that the working class have a dual consciousness. Now, they are partly influenced by ruling class ideology because of the media and the education system and religion, which promotes it. However, they may also have direct experience of exploitation. So, for example, when poor working conditions and low wages, the working class partly see through the capitalist system while not rejecting it altogether, meaning that they would develop the ideas to eventually challenge that ruling class hegemony as a result. Now, here is just a summary page of some of the main keywords by which you need to utilize when dealing with a ideology question. So these are all points by which you need to raise as to when you are looking at and describing Marxist ideology. So make sure obviously you pause the video at the appropriate keyword. And make sure you are 100% with these keywords as well. Now, the next little bit we're going to look at is neo-Marxism. So this is something by which you can pick up on page 6 and 7 within your little textbook. Now, neo-Marxists tend to believe that original Marxist view of ideology, that the beliefs of all members of society are directly determined by the economic system, is just too deterministic. There may be other factors at play which then influence an individual's life. Now, some of the later writings of Marx suggests that the economic base of society influences or limits people's values and beliefs in society, but does not directly determine them. Now, neo-Marxists have therefore developed less deterministic views of ideology as a result of this. Now, Raymond Williams in The Class and Ideology claims that the ruling class has a more individualistic culture, believing people succeed by pursuing their own individual interests, while the working class culture is more collectivist, believing people succeed through group action, for example, trade union or going on strike, showing that there is a strong sense of community spirit and belonging to a structure bigger than the individual. Furthermore, ruling class ideology is not always dominant, but can be challenged by residual ideology, the ideology of the declining class, such as landowners in Britain, and an emergent ideology, the ideology of the new class that is developing, such as rich celebrities, or those who are suddenly coming to wealth due to the boom in tech industries. Now, residual and emergent ideologies may be oppositional and opposed to the dominant culture, or alternative, they can coexist with the dominant culture. So depending as to where it really falls in terms of oppositional or alternative view and culture, or on society's ideologies, will determine whether or not it's looking to create change or maintain society as it is. Now, there are several evaluation points by which you can utilise, and I would really encourage you to read page 7 to obviously find what these evaluation points are. If you're feeling a bit lazy and you can't be bothered to open your own textbook, well, luckily I've taken a picture for you. Now, these are the evaluation points by which you could potentially use. So we've got the Glasgow Media Group has conducted a number of studies which claim that the media has consisted of pro-capitalist bias, meaning that obviously as a result of this we can argue that it's trying to maintain that ruling class ideology by ensuring capitalism still flourishes and continues to grow. Next bit there for Marxism or neo-Marxism, the American Marxists Bowles and Gintis claim that the US education system created docile workers, by which are the best type of workforce you need for capitalism to really grow, as well as a good solid consumer culture to emerge as a result. Now, Paul Willis in 1977 found that working class lads in British education systems ensured that they got working class jobs even though they were not completely taken in by ruling class ideology. So therefore it's still numbing the pain to an extent. Next point, against Marxism. So we've got postmodernists such as Pawlowski and Waters, who argue that classes are no longer significant, so there is no longer a dominant class ideology. We can argue that society has moved into a classless society, by which we do not hold class as the main idea as to defining an individual's identity. Feminists argue that ideology reflects patriarchal divisions rather than class divisions. So we're bringing into the argument that actually the real people who are oppressed are those who are of the lesser sex, arguably. And that throughout feminist perspective is going to be female. Now, the next one is anti-racists believe that ethnic divisions are more important than class. Now, we would argue that then, therefore, again, like we have with feminism, the main lines in the sand are drawn around ethnicity more so than anything, because there are stereotypes, belief systems, which therefore influence how we view these ethnicities and how they interact and belong to our society. Now, feminists believe that it is not ruling class ideas that dominate society, but patriarchal ones. Now, patriarchy refers to male dominance and control in society. Now, patriarchal ideology might involve beliefs such as men are superior to women, men are more logical than women are too emotional to hold positions of responsibility, and it is natural for women to take the main responsibility for childcare, because there are evolutionary inbuilt responses by which women are the best primary carers. Therefore, although feminists share the same general viewpoint that there are several different feminist perspectives, each with a different view on the patriarchal ideology. And I'm just going to run through a couple of these now. Now, we've got radical feminists such as Kate Millett in 1970, who believes men are socialised into having dominant temperament by society's culture. However, non-ideological factors such as violence also play a part in maintaining male dominance. Now, Germaine Greer in 2000 also considers that patriarchal ideology is entrenched in society, reflecting the way women are expected to improve their physical appearance to attract men, forever going to the gym or putting on makeup in order to attract a man, because that is what the aim of a woman's life is, seemingly. Then we've got socialist feminists here, which is Margaret Benston here in 1972, who believes that the ideology which sees women as secondary wage earners benefits both male power and capitalism, as women have less economic power than men. As we know, as I've discussed several times in most of the lessons, it came around to, I think it was about November last year. By that time, women were no longer earning any money until January. That was because the gender pay gap was that wide. Women were still receiving less pay compared to their male counterparts, which, if we actually stacked it up equally against each other, that resulted in women having less pay, as well as that not really getting the same amount of pay for about a month and a half's worth of work, which is just not right. Then we've got black feminists here, so Heidi Sophia Miraz in 1997, who considers that black women are doubly disadvantaged by racists as well as patriarchal ideology. However, sees some black women challenging the ideologies by working hard to succeed in education. Now, Pauline Marx describes how ideas from science have been used to exclude women from education as well. Now, she quotes the 19th century male doctors, scientists, and educationalists who expressed the view that educating females would lead to a creation of a new race of unfeminine females and disqualify women from their true vocation, which is going to be nurturing the next generation, ensuring that they are socialized in the appropriate morals and values of society. Now, it also claimed that higher education would result in women being unable to suckle infants, because seemingly their natural caring abilities of motherhood would be dampened and taken away by the sheer fact that they have gained some form of intellectual development. Now, some of the criticisms of the feminist view are the following. So we've got Valerie Bryson here in 1999, who criticised the idea of patriarchy, arguing that it merely describes rather than explains gender inequality. Then feminist views of ideology may be becoming less relevant as opportunities have increased for women and Western societies are becoming less patriarchal due to integration of equal pay acts, etc., by which even negative or positive discrimination is actually frowned upon, meaning that women are now being taken on into roles which they actually deserve, rather than trying to just pay their 2 pence worth to get women into the company because they don't want to receive some form of governmental fine. Now, that is the video for today. If you've got any questions, let me know.